I might have gotten the COVID virus early on and not known it. I know that I think 90% of our show has all been vaccinated. There's only a few folks that were holding out for their own personal reasons. This is my 8th year with Culpepper Merriweather. Of course, with last season being a null and void, I guess this is my 7th season in 8 years with them.
Did the pandemic affect you at all during late 2019 season? When did it start affecting you?
Well, this show was already in mothballs for the winter before that stuff started happening. So we didn't really hear anything about it until late in the winter. And then before this show could open in March, that's when all the shutdown was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2020 everything basically happened about 2 weeks before we were supposed to go out. So at first everyone thought it was going to be just waiting for 2 more weeks. So we postponed our opening day for 2 weeks. Then we postponed it a month. So then it got to the point where we just decided we weren't going to be able to do it.
All the regulations and mask mandates and quarantine was already happening before we were supposed to even open the show.
Yeah.
My dad and mom had retired to St. Augustine, and right at the beginning of the pandemic, my mom got really sick. And she'd been poor health for a while, but she passed away in April.
Yeah.
So we've been down there to be with her
Okay.
for that and to be there for my dad. And then we were just there, and the tour wasn't going to happen, and so I started looking for work in that area. And I applied everywhere I could, but when the only thing on your resume for the last 23 years is circus clown, it's hard to get an interview. Yeah, I luckily got a job working as a cashier at a grocery store, and then shortly after got a second job working as a stockman overnight in a hardware store. And between those 2 jobs, I was working 70 to 80 hours a week, and still not making nearly what I make on the circus. So it was hard to get all my bills paid, and my wife wasn't working at the time. She was able to get a job at a clothing manufacturer making protective equipment, PPE.
So we just decided to reschedule everything to 2021. And then even when that rolled around, March was still a little bit dicey. So then we decided to push it to May, and May was the perfect timing because everything was just starting to get going again. Vaccines were widely available to pretty much everyone who wanted them. I think the day before we got to Michigan, the day before they lifted all restrictions. And but even in Illinois, where they did have limits on groups in place for indoors, we were fine because we were outdoors. And we never had to do anything different than what we normally do this year. Everywhere we were, we just kind of deferred to whatever the local regulations were. We started off with only 5 guys on tent crew. So then everybody was just helping out, because we literally, for the first time ever this year, we had to delay the shows for half an hour because we weren't set up. And that has never, ever happened. Yeah, so it was so stressful. We were just like in complete panic mode.
It used to be 3 hours was a long setup, and right now 3 hours would be a dream setup. Right now we're running right around 4.5. So it's just, and early on in the season it was longer than that. There were some 6-hour setup days where they were just out there all day, almost until showtime. It was crazy.
How many performers do the show now?
I think we're at 11 right now. So,
and total
the same numbers.
Total numbers on the show, roughly?
30.
30?
This year, the new acts, we have Logan with the Birds, and he announces with me.
I co-announce the show with Simone Key, and then I present a cockatoo act on the show. And this is my first season on Culpepper at Merriweather. I was going to do something different this year and go do Renaissance fairs. So last year when COVID hit, I was on Oscar Garcia's All-American Circus. And we all thought it was going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks like everybody else. And then Oscar decided to open in July doing a socially distanced tent show. And I think we lasted 11 days. There was no business. Because I didn't want to do 1 days anymore. I said that's from when I was, young. And I got real spoiled, being on Cole Brothers and Ringling and then sitting in Wisconsin in a permanent show for 5 years. So I didn't want to do 1 days anymore. And I took the chance here and I absolutely love it. We all have an app on our phones, so the 24-hour man can track us. So as soon as we make a wrong turn, he calls, has Logan, turn around, you miss the exit. They have the water laid out for you, the electric. This is a dream show. They make it so easy here.
And then once we finally got more help and we got the full amount of drivers for the show, we weren't having to double back for vehicles. Now, over the past couple months, it's been a lot easier to do it. It feels a lot more normal.
Actually, this season, although unusual at times, our schedule changed a little bit. People in the cast and crew coming and going as different things arose during the season. But business-wise, generally speaking, it's been very up. A lot of full houses, a lot of straw houses, and even a few dates where we had to add extra shows. Last year, I was sitting in the Daytona area working at a Lowe's, so it's much better. No, it's been a wonderful season. It's getting back on the road. Of course, being shut down that long, you get that fear that maybe you won't be able to go out again. Maybe shows won't happen, or maybe if they do, you won't be able to do it. So it was really wonderful that we were able to get back on the road and bring circus to our fans and friends, but also to have it for ourselves too.